Right, we're going to look at structural devices this week. Just to recap and refresh your memory. Now, I've taught you structural devices and you should know what they are. However, we do need to go over some things, ready, to be able to analyse texts. So when it comes to structure, remember there's lots of different structural devices that a text can have, but we're going to stick to the basic narrative arc. Now, we know that all texts, all stories would have a beginning, a middle and an end, but we know that we can use better terminology to discuss these. So we have an exposition, a climax and a resolution. Now, although all extracts would have this narrative arc, it doesn't necessarily mean that the climax is going to happen right bang in the middle of the text. It may be that the climax is further towards the beginning or further towards the end. And it's important that you are able to identify which part the climax is. Don't just browse, pick the middle of the story and say, oh, that's the climax. Something's got to be going on in it to make you want to read on and know what's happening. So in our exposition, we know we are usually introduced to the main characters, and also usually the scene is set. So the scene will refer to a particular place, maybe a particular season, a particular time of the year, a month, a day, anything like that. The climax is obviously, this is when the main event happens. Usually we'll have a build-up, which we would call the rise in action, to build us up to that climax, to have that big effect. And then we'd have a resolution. However, not all stories end where things have been solved, and we don't always get questions to the answers that we have. So there could be either a resolution or a cliffhanger. Obviously, we know that a cliffhanger means that it's ended in some sort of suspense. And in order to find out what happens, we either need to read the rest of the book or buy another book. And usually all chapters in an extract end like this. Now, a good way to be thinking about your structural devices is just through watching the films and the TV series that you watch. Obviously, whilst we've been on lockdown, you've probably been watching a lot of things on Netflix, or whatever channel that you use. When you're watching your series or your films, I want you to think about the structural devices that I've used. So is it an exposition? Are we introduced to a main character at the beginning? Or does it start with a climax? A lot of films will use flashbacks as well as flash forwards. Think about why do they do this? Rather than just, obviously it can be quite confusing, but why are they particularly flashing back in the past or looking forward? Think about the climax. When is the climax in your series or your films? What is the climax? What rise in action has there been to build us up to that climax? Does it end with a resolution? Is everything solved, or is it ended in a cliffhanger? And that's a really good way. When you're watching TV, you're constantly thinking about structural devices. Now, structure isn't just important when analysing text, it's also important when you create your own pieces of writing. You need to plan your narrative writing in order to show some structural devices. You're assessed on structural devices as well as everything else. So if you have got a piece of narrative writing to do, I would advise you to plan it using a narrative arc like this. You can plan your climax, your rise in action, how it's going to end. Think about constantly engaging and interesting your reader and ways in which you're going to do that. So I'm going to say that these are the main things that we need to focus on for the work this week. So we need to think about our exposition, any rise in action, climax, resolution, any flashbacks or any flash forwards. I also want you to think about a switch in place. Get out. I also want you to think about a switch in place. Sorry about that, it's very hard to create videos with a house full. So is it switching anywhere? Does it start off in one particular setting and then does that setting change? So these are all the things that you need to think about for your task, and the extract that I'm going to give you, I will give you a text to read, and then you'll have some work to do on the structural devices, and obviously use this video as a guidance of what you need to do to refresh your memory when it comes to structure. And any questions, obviously email me. I'll just let you see that properly. Ta-da. Thank you.